Adam, are we settler colonialists?
Well, it depends on what you mean by we, but in the
You and
theory
me,
of
the
you
two
and
of
me,
us.
the theory of settler colonialism, as I think it's elaborated by academics, you don't have to be descended from someone who you would ordinarily consider a settler in order to be a settler. In other words, when you think of settlers in American history, you might think of like Puritans, people who first settled, Europeans who first came here in the 17th century. But the idea of settler colonialism is that there's a sort of ongoing system in which you're either settler or indigenous. So if you're not an indigenous person, in other words, if you're not descended from one of the peoples who lived in North America before the arrival of Europeans, then you can only be a settler. And there's even a sort of tendency in this discourse to say that it doesn't matter if your ancestors came here maybe as slaves from Africa, or if you're a recent immigrant, you're still belong to the category of settlers because you're not an indigenous person. So in that sense, everyone who's not indigenous is a settler. Of course, today, many people who consider themselves indigenous also have ancestry from other groups, but there's a sort of ideological or theoretical distinction between settlers and natives, settlers and indigenous people.
So just to be clear, if you're not indigenous to Australia, Canada, United States, as the case may be, you're a settler.
Right. That's the idea. And I think that for people who have embraced this way of thinking, acknowledging yourself as a settler is actually sort of an important moral gesture. It's not unlike saying in evangelical Christianity that you're a sinner. You say, I acknowledge that I'm a sinner, that I'm fallen, that I've inherited this sort of sin from the past. So like original sin, it doesn't have to be something that you personally did. It's sort of the continuing legacy of the original crime of settlement.
You make the point that it kind of goes beyond ordinary Christian doctrine, where it's kind of predestination, that your soul, the status is determined by your ancestry. There's nothing you can do. If you're a settler, there's a black mark on it. Is this a deflected form of Christianity for a post-religious society?
I think that it definitely has a religious, spiritual element to it. Because I think what it has most in common with Protestantism is the idea that you have to be looking at your own conscience, you have to be looking inward in order to detect sort of the legacy of sin in yourself and to purge it. And I think it's probably not a coincidence that the countries where settler colonial theory has really been most successful are those Protestant Anglophone countries, Canada, the US, and Australia, because it does have this resonance with older ways of thinking. When people introduce themselves as a settler, or if they put in their Twitter bio, I'm a settler, which I think is more common in Canada than in the US, but
Yeah.
it's probably spreading. As I said, it's similar to saying that you're a sinner. It's saying, I acknowledge this fact, and in a strange way, acknowledging it makes you morally superior to the people who don't acknowledge it. You've sort of woken up to the fact that you have a place in this corrupt system and you're trying to atone for it.